Welcome to People Love Process. This is going to be an impromptu, over-the-shoulder vector building. But the difference between this one and previous ones we've done and future ones we're going to do as well is this one's based specifically off somebody who emailed me a viewer question. And I thought it was a good topic to cover because it really deals with something that every now and then you get a client, you might brand their logo, or it might even be an event. I've ran into this creating graphics for events, but I've ran into it over the years working with agencies. You can't control their name if it's already established. If I see something with a client name, I might help them do a rebrand where we do a name exploration, we improve it. I've done that quite a few times. It's a lot of fun. I like doing that. But sometimes they have a name and it's almost like a paragraph type of name, or it's a very long sentence if you typed it out just linearly. So the question that I got from somebody by the name of Alexandra was, how do you handle long name logo designs? So that's kind of what we're going to do here. But instead of just making something up, I'm doing quotes all the time for people who approach me, and the local auto group, they're called Power Auto Group here in Oregon. They own a bunch of different franchises around the state in different locations for automobile purchases. They own a Chevrolet, a Mazda, a Volkswagen, and I think some other ones. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I provided a quote to rebrand them. Now, since I've lived here, I moved here back in the early 90s. They're everywhere. I actually bought my last car, a Mazda, from them. So when they approach me to rebrand them, I'm going, oh, this is great, or request a quote, that is. I provided a quote, and because they're a local company, I looked them up, and I could see, based off of their annual reports, how much they make every year off of their various auto group locations, and they're doing pretty good. They're making about $14 million in terms of revenue each year. So I keep that in mind when I quote, and I gave them a very reasonable quote, and I'll tell you exactly what it was, is $6,500. I was actually going to go in a little less than that, but my wife said they can afford more, so she told me to bump it up, and I did. And, well, they didn't approve it. And so I never did it, but because I get approached for stuff like that, I can't help myself. I'm thinking about it, and I had sketched out what you see here, some ideas. And I thought, oh, this would be a really good direction to present to them. But ultimately, that fell through. They were kind of cheap, didn't want to pay a real world price for what they want. So that's fine. That happens. I can't control that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this logo and I'm just going to build it out. So that's going to serve the purpose of this video. It'll be an over the shoulder, as if I'm building this for them, as one of the directions I'm going to present to them. So I'm going to show you that. But I also thought it was appropriate for the question at hand that Alexandra had, because their name can be a bit long. Especially for their various locations, like Power Chevrolet, Power Volkswagen. Volkswagen is a long name. So how would you handle those type of situations in formatting the logo? We're going to kind of go over that, and we're going to start with the raw type too. I have all the fonts loaded here, and I'm just going to show you everything from building the mark, which we'll do first, then we'll jump into pairing it with typography. And we'll go over some of the formatting methods that I've used in the past on other logos that had a lot of type in them, and how you can think about it to help you solve your own situation. Hopefully this will help Alexandra with what she is running into and those watching. So we're going to start here, and I really like this brand mark, and I redrew it a few ways. I tried this one, but it didn't really look like power, like a lightning bolt type thing. So I'm not going to use that. This one's okay, but many times when I create a doodle, I capture an essence that I really like. And this one, I tried to draw it a little more precise, and it's losing some of the character. I think it's too tall. So I tried it here in a different way. And this one's not bad. I may build that one. I tried to draw it again more precise. And this is where thumbnails are really good, because not only do you capture an idea before you lose it, you can kind of capture the essence. And I think that's what gets lost in translation sometimes from a sketch to a comp, is you don't capture that same essence. And so when it's something like this, going to be all geometric building, I kind of really focus on that and go with my thumbnail sketch. So we're going to focus on this one here. I'll just blow this sketch up a little bit like that. We'll go ahead and set this to about 15%, and it's on its own layer. So I'll just lock the layer. We'll build right on top of it here. So we'll zoom in. Always build. If you can zoom in, it's so much easier to build if you just zoom in. So we're going to have to determine what thickness this is here. So first I'm going to go ahead, go to my graphic styles, select width, and this I can tell right now this is why when you're building geometrically, you can tell the center of this cut in on the P isn't even, my sketch isn't perfect. That's no big surprise there. But we're going to go ahead and I like using dynamic corners by Astute Graphic. It just works really great because I can start with the circle. Now, if you're doing this natively in Illustrator with the corner widget, just start with the square. Same thing, position it, and then you can create the circle. In this case, I can create the flat edge here. I'm just going to pull this out here, and then I'll go ahead and do offset. We'll go with a minus number, and we're going to figure out what the weight is on this brand mark. So not enough. Let's go maybe 28. I think that looks pretty good. I don't want to get more thin than that, I think, because then it would pinch and not work well smaller. So I think I'll leave that. I think that'll work. Drag that over, because ultimately we'll just use Pathfinder and minus front. And then the same width, I'll just use the rectangle tool. And then now we just need to figure out the angle. And use the rotate tool. I think that angle looks fine. I'm not going to keep it the same thickness because I do want this to be wider here. So I'll select these anchors, bring it over like that, and I can take this one, snap it to that corner, drag it over here, and I'll snap it to the edge right here. Now I could also, actually that'd probably be a better way to do it. I'll just take this, I'll clone this, Command C, Command F. If you have the contextual menu bar open, just select the shape and hit the duplicate button on that. I just gets in the way. I don't like it. Until they allow me to tell it where to position it with whenever it comes up, I'm not going to use it. I don't like how they defaulted it. So we'll take that and we'll just trim off that edge. This one, I can bring this all the way down, snap it to that corner. And because we're using smart guides, I'm just sliding right on the path, so I'm retaining that angle. Command U to turn it on, Command U to turn it off. Like that. I'm going to use a rectangle tool to figure out what that is, because I'm going to use that as the top edge of the bolt here. And I'll go like this. This angle doesn't have to match the other one, but on this angle it should. So I'll clone this. And we'll go right about there. I'm so used to working this way, I don't think it could kind of get confusing for those. Well, what are you doing? Well, I'll fill it in with color. I'm just doing it so I can trim it. So I get that little wedge shape. Now I can just take the rectangle tool like that. Select this one, trim that one. So I'm just building all the pieces. And I think that looks good. But before I commit to anything, I'll just go ahead and fill this black, get rid of the outline. Might even turn that off just to look at it. And I think one thing, this is going over too far. Not only that, I think this doesn't need to be the same width. I think we want some volume on the back side. The P has a bootay. Yeah, I think I like that. Let's turn this on. This is where, well, for instance, let's go ahead and make a copy of this and group it, and then I'm just going to move it to my junk drawer. This is where, like, if I zoom out, I'm going to go back to I like seeing my sketch underneath it, and it helps me to compare stuff. So I'm just going to turn that back into outlines, zoom in on it. I think what I might try is, instead of this one being the exact same angle, I'm going to taper that just a bit. See what that looks like. I don't like the taper, but I do like it being a little thinner. I just think I added a little too. Actually, let me test something. Go here. Oh, it's a lot thinner than that. So, well, I'll try this first. By the way, if I'm going back and forth like this, I usually will do something like that. That way I can just select these, go to the eyedropper, and sample that to get what I want. Yeah, I think I like that. I'm still thinking maybe that should be thicker. This is where I really, I mean, it doesn't take a long time to build something like this, but don't just build it and not think. Really kind of critique it. I'm trying something here. I like relating things to one another because I think it brings continuity to a mark like this. And I'm thinking maybe, no, see, that's too far. But I kind of like this being even beefier back there. It doesn't look off either, so I'm kind of liking that. And I might go in on this eventually and like round that off maybe. I might do that. Depends on what typeface I go with or pair with this design. I'm still thinking. I'm gonna go ahead and move this over, and we'll go ahead and turn that back into outlines. I want to try something. I'm going to undo the rounds here. So even in the process, even though I have thumbnails, I'll explore, or I feel like I need to work something out a little more or try something before I settle or make my final decision. So copy this, paste it, put it in the same orientation, go to the rotate tool, just so it's at the same angle. I'm going to make this a little longer. Get rid of that one. Now I'm going to go in. When you're working with all 90-degree angles, you don't have to trim everything. You can do it just as sloppy as this. Select these things, go unite, and then just focus on the anchor points you don't need, like these, and these. And then you can just remove anchor points since they're not on curves. Doesn't matter. Like that. And now I'm going to well, that's interesting. Do I have rounding turned off? Let's check. Hide corner widget. I don't. Why is it not showing me the corner widget? Oh, is this? No, it shouldn't. What? That's interesting. I've had this happen before where the corner widget doesn't want to show up. One reason why I usually deactivate it and just focus on a plugin. Oh, that's right. Okay, here's one thing that if Illustrator team actually used their software, they'd probably change. If you go to Window, or you go to View, that is, and it says Hide Corner Widget. If it's hidden, this should change to Show Corner Widget, but it just always stays at Hide Corner Widget. So when I look in this menu and I say, no, I don't have it activated, well, you can't really tell. You could have it activated. That seems like obvious. If I've ran the command to hide it, then in the menu it should say Show, and if it's showing and I want to hide it, then it should only say hide in that context, but whatever. That's the way they've done it. Okay. I think too literally sometimes. You have to think like an Adobe engineer. Okay, what makes no sense? And that's usually what they went with. Okay, I'm going to select this segment here. So it looks like I select the whole shape. Actually, I've isolated with direct select that segment. And by the way, if you hold Option down and you just pull it, you'll copy it like that. Or if you just direct select a segment and you go Command C, Command F, it'll just take that segment you've isolated and make a copy of it. Just something you should know. But I'm going to select it, just that segment, because I like going to the PathScribe plugin, and I'll go add anchor point to selected segment. And this one, I just want one, like that. I'll select this anchor. And the reason why I do that is because the only way you can do it natively in Illustrator, let me undo it. The only way you can do it natively in Illustrator is go Object Path, and I used this for years until Astute plugins came out, is add anchor points. Well, you can't tell it to add it to one specific segment. It'll just add it to every segment. So that's no good. But with the corner widget, well, I'll go back and I'll put a dot there. I'll try this with the corner widget first. So I'm just wondering if we keep it kind of, that's not bad either. That's not bad either. If I go like this, I just can't make up my mind. I don't like that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to select this. I'm going to do what I originally was going to do, add an anchor point here, like that. Then I'm going to go to dynamic corners. I'm going to select standard. What standard does is it takes the angle here and this, and it creates the perfect curve that goes into that angle. Now, the reason why I put that anchor there is so it stops exactly halfway. Then I'll take this one and exactly halfway, and you can see how it angles it according to that angle I had here. It's not a perfect circle like I did before. And I just wanted to see if I like this better. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing here. And I'll use the same method here. Nope, don't like that either. Okay, is worth trying. I'm thinking maybe let's go back here. Instead of standard, we'll stay with true radius. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just optically do something here. Right, create that. That looks good. I'm going to try something. Select this, bring it to the front. By the way, I did make a copy. Make copy. Normally I record on Saturday, but I had some time to kill Friday, so I'm doing this on a work day actually. Okay, so the thickness we have here is 28.001 points high. I almost had it exactly, so I'll copy that. Select this. We'll go offset, and I'll just paste it and go preview. And so this is the curve it creates for me, which I'm kind of liking that. I think I like that, but I'll go ahead and build it out, and then I'll compare it to the other one. Oop. Let's go ahead and make a shape to trim here. Snap it to that angle. sketch. I'll trim this. Okay. Just gonna move that out of the way. With this on top. And minus front. On this one, I'm just gonna, once again, just so the back end is a little thick. And we'll just compare it with the other one. Sometimes I'll just turn off the sketch. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I like it. So what I'm going to do is copy it, move over here, and I'm going to try something. Man. So I'm probably going to be messing with this for a bit. So if you want to fast forward, you don't have to watch all this. I literally can't make up my mind here. The first one, let's put these in chronological order. First one, second one, third one. If this is a live stream, I'll let you guys pick. I actually, now I'm second guessing this one. I'm going to do this. I'm thinking maybe this is just protruding too far. So let's go ahead. No, I don't like that. Okay, that wasn't it. I'm actually, I think I actually like this one the best. The last one I did. Okay, well, these, I can just get rid of that. So, these are okay. I'll just group them, and I never throw stuff away. I just move it up to my drawer. I think we'll keep this one. Let's go ahead and group it so it doesn't move. And then I'll try building one of these other ones out. And I think I want to try this one here. So again, I'm going to run in that. I'm going to run into the same issue with this one, I think. But that's okay. I'll start with the rectangle. Force myself to build as fast as I can. Like that. Select these anchors, and I'll establish this angle first. Maybe a little more there. like that. Then I can clone this, Command C, Command F. Bring this down. And maybe keep once again, I'm sliding on the path. That's Smart Guides, Command U. Very helpful. Okay, then on this one, lop the top of this shape off. Like that. Let's zoom in. We're too far out. There we go. So I think I'm going to try some. I normally don't do this, but on this one, I think it might help. And then if we go to shear, it's going to orient in the center. If I hold shift down, like that. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. This is probably the way it's going to work. So go to this. I'll go ahead and work out that. Then we'll go offset, and I'll go -24, see what that looks like. Pretty close. I think it needs to be smaller. Let's go 20. Oh, no, I meant higher, so 28. That, I think that looks pretty good. I'll go all the way over. I'm going to make a copy of this because this will end up being the gap tolerance here, and on the bottom it's going to push this one down, so we'll just make that adjustment later. So I'm going to select these two, then I'll go to the now I can't remember the name of this one. What is the name of this one? Shear tool. And it'll focus right in the center. If you hold the shift key down, then you can just distort it like that. It's better to move your cursor away, hold the shift key down, and then distort it, and it won't wig out. So I'm not sure why it does that, but if your cursor is up here and you try to do it, it's really easy to wig out. So I found if you keep it away, let it still focus in the center. That's what we do want. And hold shift key down, and then if you just drag it, in this case, we're dragging to the left. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this over to get that edge. Then I will drag it. And if we match that angle like that, that skews that P. I think we want to fudge it a bit. So even though, oops, that kind of did what, I think we want something that's kind of like this. It's still skewed, but I think this looks better. I just don't like the interior now. So I'm just going to drag this over. Drag this over. We'll take this. And I'll move this one over. Okay, that's starting to feel better now, I think. Take that and delete it. This, I'll come up here. Line it to that to get that gap. And then bring it Actually, we'll just take this, bring it to the front, select this shape, minus front. Snap that. And drag that over. Make copies, select that, trim it so we create that negative space we retain that continuity. I think I'm liking this one better than the other one. We'll compare them here in just a second. I think that looks pretty good. Select this, so sample black, turn off the sketch. I'm almost thinking, even though I have that continuity, yes, I second guess myself all the time when I'm creating like this. We're going to violate it. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I think we want these closer, and the inner part of the P can obviously be wider, but I think the detailing of the gaps need to be smaller. I don't think it looks good having it all the same. It doesn't need to be. So I'll go over one more like that. Then all I'm doing here is creating a shape like this that defines that. This is a nice little plug-in. This is the Orient tool. You click, and then turn it into a 90 degrees. And if you get a funky bounding box, you can fix that by either going up to Object, Transform, Reset Bounding Box, and it'll fix it like that. Or you can just have it selected, and if you go to, where's my Pathfinder? Pathfinder, and you go Unite, it'll reset the bounding box. So, okay, then I'll drag this over because I'm going to take this and drag it on the Smart Guide so it's further up, and then drag it back down, and notice how it says intersect. Now it's snapped. And that's why I like snapping. And at times it acts like nothing's there. It just stops working. But here it's not impeding my build. Okay, so if you look at the first one I did, same tolerance within the inner part of the P into the bolt. It looks okay, but I think this reads better as a P, and the continuity with the gap being at the bottom too, it doesn't look off, like it should all be the same weight. I don't think you have that problem. So this one I won't use, but once again, I'll just drag it to my layer, bring this one out. Let's go ahead and increase the size here. Copy this, make a copy of it, and I'll drag that to my layer. So if I had to pick between these two, I think I'm going to lean towards this one. I kind of like it. I like the flair of it a lot. And we could even, maybe we even drag that out even more. Yeah. Weight-wise, I think that works better. Okay. Make another copy. Always save a copy, put it in there. So this one, it's not bad, just didn't make the cut. So I'm going to put it here. We're going to go with this one. Once I decided on this, I'll just unite it. And because I have remove redundant points, it'll remove the obvious ones. It doesn't help when you're building on a curve. It'll still create redundant points in Illustrator. So I think this looks pretty good for a brand mark. On a mark like this, I'll go in on something like this. And I don't want these to come to dagger sharp points. I want to put some craftsmanship into it. And all these white nodes, by the way, are when I use Astute Graphics plugins. If using PathScribe, with PathScribe selected, it'll show you these, and these are just shortcuts to get the handle. We don't need to use those, so we're not going to worry about it. But what I'm going to do is just select these corners, and I usually turn off corner widget, so let's go ahead and go to view and hide corner widget. Now notice I hit it. What? Now it's saying show corner widget. I swear. Oh, it's messing with me. Okay. I guess it does do that. I swear it wasn't showing that before, though. Okay, whatever. I'm going to add tiny little subtle rounds here so it doesn't come. So at the size it's going to be used, it'll look sharp. But actually, this just makes things look just more buttoned up. Adding subtle rounds on stuff like that. Like this, I just think it looks more custom, looks more crafted. So as far as the brand mark goes, I like that. But we're going to pair it with type. Actually, first, their brand color is a nice red and black, and they use gray as well. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. I might create a version where it's sitting on this, but I wouldn't leave it like this. This looks lame. I'll explore that in a little bit. I'm not going to worry so much about that now. I just don't want to forget it, so I'm going to create that. Okay, typography. Let's go to this layer. Normally, I don't have live type in these, and actually the exercise files, I can't put the type fonts in there, obviously. So these will all be rounded. But this is how I do type exploration. It's nothing fancy. I use FontBase for organizing my type, and I categorize them into styles, so that helps me. Here I wanted some nice, thick, kind of beefy, Power is their name, so I want them powerful, strong. And this one, Quattro, one of my favorite fonts by Mark Canseco. Great font, just amazing typography designer. He's fun to follow on Instagram if you want to follow a good creative account. This one, Russo one. Some of these have options. This is just they're regular, so even they're regular. And I think there's one that's even bolder than this. Click on this one. This one has a weird name, RB number 3.1 Black Demo. Okay. But I like the Letterforms. This one I'm not going to use, but I included in here anyway. It's one called PP Monument. This one's called AMCAP. It's one where whether you type in lowercase or uppercase, it's all uppercase. It works good for titling. I think it's okay, but I'm probably not going to use that one either. These four fonts come from a company called TYPEDRIFT, and I'll focus on this in another movie more appropriately, but they gave me a code that I'm going to give to you guys, and I'm not going to put it in the video, but I'll put it in the description of this video once it goes live. And I'll also focus more specifically on some of their typefaces because it's a type foundry called TYPEDRIFT. They come up some great typefaces. And TJ Harley Creative out of Georgia is the one behind it. He does a lot of great sports branding, and we'll focus on a sports branding type thing, and I'll utilize their font, and we'll kind of dive into all their fonts even more and show you their website. But I will put a code so you can get a discount if you want to visit the site. There will be a link for that. And then the discount code you can use if you wanted to buy their fonts. They're very reasonably priced. And I've purchased them over the years for working on branding projects. But this is one of them called Agent. I just love the Letterforms here. Here's another one called Champions. I love this one. Although, as I was looking at this one, I kind of like, this is a drop cap, by the way, where you type in lowercase and it's just it's a drop cap of the capitalized version. I actually like how it reads better in the W on the lowercase. I think the W in the uppercase gets a little thin on these. I would have modified those, but as I'm looking at the W here, I think that's perfect. So this is the case where I go in, I just use the lowercase version, and I'm definitely going to explore that one. Actually, that's probably the one I'm going to try out. This one's pretty good, but and it has some of that gap we have in ours, but I just think it's just a little too condensed. I want it to be more wide than it is tall. And here's another nice one they have called Quad Sans, which I think is nice as well, but I still think I'm leaning towards this one, even though it's a serif. I can edit that to create a sans serif version. So that's all I'm going to do. Now, it's the name of the business is Power Auto Group is the parent brand. And then you have Power Chevrolet, Power Volkswagen, Power Mazda. Mazda's not a big name, but Volkswagen is a pretty long name. So, and Auto Group, you have 3 words instead of 2 words. So we'll explore how to handle some of that stuff. So what we're going to focus on is Auto Group and maybe Chevrolet. If you're doing Volkswagen, you might want to go into these are all condensed fonts and handle it, because that way it won't be as long. So that's one way to think about typography at this stage. But we'll take this one, I'll copy it, and we'll go back to build here, this guy, paste it. And all I'm going to do is convert this to paths. So we'll zoom in a little bit, and we'll go type, and we'll go create outlines. We don't need these. We'll get rid of that. And I'll just go ahead and beef this up. And I like this one specifically. It just, I like these rounds down here. It doesn't come to a dagger sharp point. But I do want to tweak with this a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and I usually do something like this if I know I want to kind of neuter these serifs like that. I'll go back in and it'll make sense when you see why I'm doing this. Like that. And you don't have to customize type like this, but I usually do. I prefer, I think 95% of all my brandings I work on, I'm using, I'm definitely using a sans serif typeface, not a serif. I have no problem with serif. I just, I don't know. I just prefer sans serif. So that's what I would do on these. And the reason why I did that is because now I can select it, go unite, select this, go unite, select this, go unite, select this, go unite, double click into isolation mode, deselect the letter form, get rid of the artifacts. Command A, deselect letter form, get rid of the artifacts. Select everything, deselect letter form, get rid of artifacts. We're going to have these extra anchors, but it's on a straight line, so we could just select them, delete them. This, we'll double click, select everything, deselect letter form, get rid of the artifacts, and now we have a serif or sans serif version of the same Letterforms. The weight intact, I think, looks pretty good. So I'm just going to visually adjust the kerning. Now, yes, I see reels all the time where if you're putting together a logo file and they're like using all the snapping things on live fonts, I'm going, who delivers brand assets as live fonts? You should never do that. Your brand assets should be outlined. Yeah, I don't know. In 20 some years, I've never done that. Starts as a live font, but I never deliver my brand assets as live fonts. I provide fonts or access to where they can get the fonts in a style guide to demonstrate the fonts that go with the brand that they could use. But I find that's a bit odd. So, Power Mazda. We'll come back to this word. I'll go ahead and group it. I want to focus on this a little bit, and we'll figure this out. By the way, I just realized I should probably have done something before I rounded this tip. So what I'm going to do is unround this tip. The other ones don't really matter. I'm going to take this. We'll go like that. I'll add a stroke. I'll go to the stroke palette, and I'm going to make it a stroke that's behind and kind of beef it up. We'll change the mitering so that point comes out. Otherwise, it won't work too hot. And I'm just trying to figure out what weight do I want this to be. And we're not going to use black. I just picked black. We're going to change this to a red because I want it to be something like that for the brand mark. And I think we need the outline to be beefier. So I do something like this. Then let's zoom out. And then this is where I'll determine if this background shape is positioned the best it could. And I think moving it just like that. And you want that interest of it popping out of those bounds. You wouldn't want to just kind of keep it within. You could handle this differently. You could make a copy of this, bring it over, get rid of the outline. If you wanted to, you could do something like this where it goes off the edge if you wanted to. You'd have to figure out the balance here. I just don't think it's ideal for the angles in this mark. That's why I'm kind of handling it this way. I'm going to beef this up maybe 2 more, something like that. Make a copy, and we'll go to path, and we'll go outline stroke. We'll unite it. You can see all the extra anchor points. Double click, Command A, deselect the outermost, then just delete the artifacts. That's how I deal with that. And I'll select this. We'll go to graphic styles just so I can see it like that. Select this. We'll get rid of the outline. That was just to help us. But notice, you know, you'd want to pull this in like that. And it looks like we have anchors here. It's on a straight line. So we'll go ahead and just remove those. You can see it rounded it here, but this won't matter because you won't see it. It'll just be, it'll like cohesion with the background shape. So it's not gonna matter. So we'll select that, select the background shape, push this to the back. And now I'm gonna go in like this. And this is where I'll go to my dynamic corners. I'll sample what round we had here. I'll put that back in here, and I remove that because I didn't want this to be rounded. I wanted to have the appearance of a point, but I'll go in and I'll make that one a subtle round there as well. So that's the kind of detailing I tend to pay attention to. I think this is looking pretty cool. So I'll select it. Actually, I'll select both of these. Copy them, group them, go to layers, and put them in my safety drawer. Select this. Actually, back in the day, there was a plugin for Mac where you could see the interface and it'd be on the edge of the screen, and they were like little drawers and you could drag and drop stuff in them. And I use that all the time. And then it kind of went bye-bye when Apple started locking down on what they let software developers do. And I kind of miss it. It was kind of fun. That was before iTunes. So I forget what app it was that Adobe bought out and turned it into iTunes, but it was back in those days, like the late 90s. Okay, so we'll take those two shapes now, go to Pathfinder, unite them, and I'll select this and I'll group it. So that's pretty much the brand mark that we have. I don't know if we need this guy, so I'm just going to move him to the X layer, move this up here. And now we just need to figure out how we're going to balance this with our type, and with the extra type we need to add to it. Now, on their buildings, it always says power, and then usually they use the corporate branding for Chevrolet or Chevrolet or Mazda or Volkswagen, and it will be in the logo type for those brands, for those car models. But in this case, for their own identity, for their letterhead, for their website and other things, they need it kind of worked out. So on something like this, I'm going to go here, find a central anchor point on this circle like that, because it's weighted, so it would drop down if I tried to align it based off the mark. And I'll just see what math gives us for alignment if we go horizontally. So we're almost dead on there. And this is where I determined if I need to adjust anything. And I think one thing I want to try is I'm going to go like this. And I just want to try to make the height just so it goes off the inner part, but that makes the brand mark too big, so I'm not going to do that. And by the way, this is where I would use something like this to select this, group it together. That way this will always stay mathematically perfectly aligned horizontally. And then I'll use this to scale down, and you don't lose that. Because if we scaled down without that extra shape in there, because the bottom of the P sticks out, it would, you'd have to reposition it again. So all I'm doing here is I'm just trying to balance it with the word mark. And usually on something like this is where, well, when I'm working, I actually have it a color, but you could remove the color if it gets in your way. But then there's been times when I was creating other things and I couldn't see it, so I forgot about it. And so that's why I usually color it. So I think that looks pretty good. Maybe just a little smaller, something like that. Now we haven't even committed to, this is still just a group, so I'll go ahead and just unite it, make it a compound like that. So this would be a good example of a horizontal format for this design. But secondary typography, let's work that out and do a couple other formats, because even though on their building it'll be power, they need it to say other things. So we wanted to provide a vertical format. We want to provide, we have one horizontal format, but that's just thinking more of the sign. So let's go ahead and I'm going to take this one first, and I'll copy it. I think this one's going to work the best. Like this, and this typeface is Montserrat. I always think of Medal of Honor I used to play. There was a Battle of Montserrat, actually from World War II. And it was a monastery. I think it was in Italy or Spain or something like that during World War II. That was a fun map to play in that game. Okay, like that. We might color it like that. But I'm thinking this might be a little too bold now. Let's see what bold. That looks better, I think. So determining that looks okay, but I think the kerning needs to be tweaked. So I just realized I don't have my shortcuts set up on this machine. Well, I do. I have Shift Command T. So Shift Command O T. Okay. For years, I used Shift Command =, to get it to convert to paths. I forgot I changed that. Okay, so this is probably going to frustrate some of you, but it's the way I prefer doing it. Again, I'm not going to deliver live typefaces, so like in my opinion, this might be what a lot of people think is okay spacing. I think this needs to come over a bit. Everything else looks good there. I think this needs to come over just move the other one now. Okay. This is where I usually zoom in on type like this. Drag it away, then drag it back and find a nice balance, something like that. Drag it away, then drag it back. I think all of the rest are okay. This just needs to be a little tighter, I think. Something like that. And then we want that to fall off the left a bit. Don't want it to be too tight with the power. So this is I'm going to make a copy of this because I'm not completely sure yet. Select these two things. I'll group it. Then we'll select this and I'll horizontally align it like that. Now, this is where I'll make it so it aligns with the top of the P mark. That's interesting. On my other machine, if I hold the hand down and move, my artboard doesn't disappear, but on this one it does. I kind of like it. Okay, so I think this is centered, but I think the type's a little small, so I'm going to scale this up until I think it works best. So on this one, I'll just move this to the X layer. Maybe nudge that one over. Okay. So this might be their horizontal. So if I go down to here, you know, if we're going to work out a vertical, let's get rid of that. Find the center here again, just so we can vertically center this. So you can see with this brand mark, because that extender comes down so far, in my opinion, this wouldn't be an ideal format for this mark, because I think it looks fine in horizontal, but because it extends down, it makes locking type up directly underneath it, not work all that great because of that. So this is the case where even if you made it smaller and, brought it up, even normally I'd have it probably right about here, but you can see it runs into the type. So I probably wouldn't lock it up like this. So I'm going to move this back into position over here and get rid of this one. Now, what I want to do is I would consider this their primary logo. It's a horizontal format. That's okay. If you want to handle it a little differently, well, we could do this. Go like this. Now I'm using that principle where instead of aligning the edge of the curve of the G with the edge of the P, because if you did that, it wouldn't look correct. Just like on the baseline, you want it, the letter O's and those type of letter forms, you want it to go below the baseline and above the X height. So those are the things you want to pay attention to here. So in terms of this, I would snap it to the bottom here. And I'd kind of use I was going to use the type, but I won't. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks pretty good. Okay, that looks okay. We group it. And so again, this is just another format where maybe you don't want it. It's okay if this was used on actually, let's get rid of that now. We can select this and go group. It'd be okay if it is just being used on a website or for that matter on their corporate headquarters. That'd be fine. But you might want it in a different context to be less horizontal. And so you could stack it like this. And again, you'd want to find a good balance between the horizontal alignment. So we'll use this again to go ahead and horizontally align it like that. So you can see it's the same. The brand mark is essentially the same size as the one above here, position the same. And let's go ahead and ungroup this really quick. And this is positioned to the right of it with the same gap and tolerance as we have in the above one, but the type is drastically smaller, and this would be better use in other contexts. So it's always good to give them a choice with how they could do this. I think these two choices are fine. So we'll move those over. And we'll focus on, actually, let's put that up here. We'll take this, we'll clone it, bring it down. I'm going to ungroup it again, get rid of this one, and we'll go back to our type, and we'll do a long one. We'll do Volkswagen or Chevrolet. Which one should we do? I think I'm going to pick a different typeface, so I'll try this one. Actually, since we settled on this one, we actually used extra bold. We used bold, so we'll copy it. And, oops, make sure we're on the, yes, I know. Paste it like that. There we go. Chevrolet works really well in this context because it goes well. Auto group isn't bad, but Chevrolet works really well with this. And the mark, actually, that was a little too easy. Let's go ahead and, again, I keep trying to do my old command. There we go. I'm just going to move these a little bit. I think that's too far away. I know there's probably some typophiles watching this. What'd you do that for? That looked perfect. It's like, I hate trying to do kerning, just, using the key commands or the nudge keys, and it's like I seriously, like, since I started running my own studio in 2002, I've not once ever delivered final brand assets with live fonts. I don't know why you'd ever want to do that. Now, this is a case, if I bring it up, you can see it aligns with the top of the R, but the bottom of the R, this overhangs. That doesn't bug me. I think that looks fine. And that looks like really solid. So that was actually easier than I thought it'd be. Let's try, let's try a stack. Let's say they said, but we really want a vertical one. So let's try to do a vertical one and see if we can pull that off. So that's not bad. We'll just come down here. Maybe it's for Power Chevrolet. They want a vertical one. Let's go ahead and figure out that'll be the center point. Select this, focus on it, and align it. I'm just seeing if we could overlap it, and yeah, I just wouldn't. Let me think about it. Maybe that's the challenge. I'm just giving up too easy. That doesn't look too bad. It's still pretty far away from the logo type, though. Or maybe we can handle it a little differently where the type is second. Ooh, okay. I like that. That's how I'd handle it. I would just depreciate the name in favor of the logo being in hierarchy, the first thing read, and then the name being second. So that actually works okay now. So I don't mind that. So we have this one. We'll just group these like this, like that. Line these. this one. Line it like that. So that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I think that'd work. And we could actually, I created two horizontal options up here, but we could do the same thing where, let's just do this. Let's go ahead and size these down so they fit on the page better, like that. And we'll move this guy down. I'll take this, copy it. And all I'm going to do is I'll double click in here, grab this, copy it, and all we're going to do is replace Power Chevrolet. Cover that color we're not using, which is a yellow. Zoom in on it. And I'm going to paste this. Now, ultimately, we want this to be the same width as Power, so I'm going to create a shape, and that will tell us what the width needs to be. So if I select this, it's that many points high, this many points wide. So I'm going to do the same thing on this, and this is just how I size it. Because we have the A that extends past, and I want it to be based off of this part of the logo type. So I'll select this, mask it, select this, copy this width, copy, select this, and then I'm going to paste this width. Just make sure you have the proportion link turned on. Paste that in, click OK. Then I can unmask it, and now it's the exact size to replace the old type. That's just the workaround I've always done. It's just easier than trying to physically scale it. So I think that actually works fairly well. So if we do that, that works good. So we have Power Auto Group horizontally, Power Auto Group option for a different way of stacking the logo type, so it still works horizontally but doesn't take up as much real estate. We've worked out an option for the vertical. So this is what I usually try to do. There's one more I'll do. I'll do one more horizontal. So let's go ahead and grab this. Now this is, let's say on the website they wanted it to span the top header even more. So let's go ahead and move these down. And I'll make a copy of this one. And I have done this for clients at times who had a longer name and they wanted it horizontal, so when you open up the site, it kind of spans most of the top above where the menu would be. Sorry, gesticulating. Okay, we're going to ungroup this. So what I'd usually do here is I'll find the center again on this shape, like that. And I'll center this like that. We're going to move this guy down. I'll take this type, and I'll horizontally center it. And then on this design, I base it off of this background shape for the height, like that. And then I would put kind of, I don't know what you'd call this other than, I've done it many times over the years, like a little bracket spacing device in between these two words, or in between power and the category here. And this would be a good example of, if you go to the Power Chevrolet page, this could just be Chevrolet or Volkswagen or Mazda, whatever. This is another way you could design it so it's more universal. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that might be a little too tall. So let's do this. Okay, so this was the height we had it. So I'm thinking maybe about that tall. And I just did that with the rectangle just so I could snap it. Notice how it won't snap going this way. So if you stop and go the other way, boom, it'll snap. That's that snapping bug that's been in Illustrator. So if I select this, it's just a 1-point line. So this is another way, and it might even be a little too far. So let's move this over and right about there, select that. And so this would be another option for how to handle a longer name. Now, it's a long graphic, but in this context, I think it makes sense for like on a website. In other contexts, whether it's letterhead, stationery, merchandise, if you had it this wide on a t-shirt, it'd make it really small. So you'd want to go with something like this one on apparel. So it's at this point that I would take my designs like this, and I'll just select the auto group ones. We'll select these three. I'm going to go to copy, and I already have a little template set up for what I call close to final comps. So that's all we're going to do is I'll put these in here, and this is where I would organize my comp or my presentation of the ideas. And on this one, I'd probably do this one smaller, you know, just to show how it holds up at a different size. I'd take this one, do that. This one can be a bit smaller like that. This one can be bigger, I guess. Something like this. So I'd lay it out. In this case, it's a horizontal type comp. But what I also like to do is, let's go ahead and align these. Oh, well, I think it looks better when it's optically aligned. Very important. Because math, select this. What does math say? This. But that looks too far down. So you have to pay attention to optical alignment. I think it looks better right about there, like that. So this is where I'll take this, I'll make a copy, and I'll drag it down on a colored or photographic background like we have down here. And I always try to pick a theme that goes with whatever the comp's for. Actually, I might send this off to him and say, yeah, see, you didn't hire me, but I could have come up with something cool like this. And who knows, they might go for it. I've had that happen before. But this looks horrible this way, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to ungroup it. So on this is where I would go to the Pathfinder and I go minus front, because this can just be white on a dark colored background. That looks good. And then I would make power what's black would be white like that. You could even color this red, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It could be this. I might make the background color a little darker, but actually I would tint that up. By the way, the PSD files in the exercise files on this, if you want to mess with that, that's fine. And then we'll just do the same on this guy over here. Select that, minus front. Select this, go white. And again, if I went in on a design like this, I might go, we'll mock it up on this comp. So fill it with black. This is a global color, so we'll go 15. We'll go multiply. I'll cut it, paste it. Actually, let's group these. Group and group. And then I'll paste behind. We have 15. Maybe we go 30. And you can see it holds up. That's probably what I should have put the photographic element at, is maybe just a little 5% less, like that. And it works fine on a dark, colorized or photographic background. I always try to show them what it's going to look like in a reverse format. Obviously, if you also provide ones that are just white, you know, Apple does this a lot with their keynotes where they have some background and they show all the logos for whoever's developing games, for example, and they always simplify those people's logos into one color, which I always like because, you know, some of those brands never do that. But Apple does it just because we have to simplify things. We'll color it white like that. So this is how I'll usually showcase to a client. So that's one example. I actually like this mark, so I think I am going to send it to him. But I want to go over 3 categories really quick, and that is hierarchy. So as you're working on branding, these were all examples of projects I worked on. Like this project was Oregon State Capitol Foundation. That's like a little paragraph. But we figured out a clever way to pull that off. So even though it's a lot of type, it still works really well as a representation. Now, ultimately, they went with a completely ugly design direction on that one and not ours, which I thought was brilliant because the thing about the state capitol in Oregon is they have cherry blossoms that they got from Japan years and years ago, and those always bloom. And so it really ties into the Capitol well. Oh, well, that's the way the project goes. They didn't go with our exploration. We got paid, but, you know, seeing what they choose, and you're just, oh, really? Why'd you go that way? Christopher Bean, long name in and of itself, but he wanted coffee in there. And I go, well, don't people know? It's like you don't have to say Starbucks coffee anymore. You just say Starbucks. Well, yeah, but I want coffee in there. Okay, so the hierarchy here is his name. But you can't put it in one line because it's just so long, and you don't want to always use a condensed typeface. And so I stacked it, and the hierarchy depreciates coffee. Much like the hierarchy, this is about the Oregon Capitol. So Oregon, O-R, simplification of the name, takes most of the credit. State Capitol Foundation, secondary. Foundation, even more secondary by forcing it to be a secondary color, not the branded green. Treehouse Adventure Park, I believe this was in Idaho. It's been a few years. Still a long name, Treehouse Adventure Park. So what's the most important thing? They're tree houses, because that's why people go there. Adventure Park is just a description of what the tree houses are in context of. So we depreciated that and made it secondary in terms of hierarchy. Real estate developer down in Costa Rica, La Venta di Jaco. I don't even remember what this means, but you couldn't type it out as one name, so it made sense to break it up like this and to make the hierarchy work well. Circadian Company, they want company spelled out. I'm like, okay, well, that's long, but this is the way I handled that. Is company really needed? Well, of course it's a company. Anybody that sells products is a company. So we just depreciated it. It's not needed. We focused on it more in terms of the brand mark with CC, but ultimately kind of organized the hierarchy this way. And a threat assessment conference called Suricata, a user conference, and the same thing. The user conference is kind of self-explanatory for anybody going to that conference. So we didn't bother giving that full credit. We just focused on the name, primary brand name of the conference, which is all kind of based off of, symbolized by meerkats, which is kind of, I thought was a little interesting for tech security people, but it's what they do. So I guess they know. Stacked alignment. This is another one where if you have long names or multiple names in the title. So our story tours, it was about African American history tours in DC. And so we took that name, and it's all those words are important for the name. So it's not something I could depreciate like just our story tours. No, the name is just our story tours. And so I wanted all those to be the same. So we stacked them, and it nested right into the brand mark we came up with. So in that respect, it works good. Now, when you're dealing with public accountants like this one, or the one right below it, which is my business lawyer's firm, lawyers love putting last names of all the partners, and that's their name. And you end up with these long titles, Dottie Pruitt Wilson. And the fact that they're certified public accountants, so they want that included. So that's the whole paragraph, and you have to figure out how to do it. Well, stack alignment is the way to do it. Come up with a nice mark, and then you can stack it, flush left, flush right, whatever works with your composition. Virginia Community Healthcare Association, again, a long name. And the only way we could pull this off is by stacking it and positioning it with the brand mark we came up with. Now, association, in terms of its importance, is secondary. It's just Virginia Community Healthcare is the most important part. So we used a brand color to kind of secondary reinforce the importance of that. It still needs to be there, but it doesn't need to take center stage like the primary part of the name. The Chisholm Trail Heritage Center and Museum we branded. This one, the directions we came up with. Long name, and it was hard to use in a vertical format. So this is the way we stack that along with the Heritage Center. So that's how we use stacking and alignment to simplify a motif with a long name. Here's some other examples, options. So as I'm creating designs, if the client has a long name like Your Nutrition Anytime. This was like a company, this agency hired us to brand, and they had like really healthy snack foods, not chips, like stuff that is actually good for you in these vending machines they put out. And so, but it's a long name, Your Nutrition Anytime, they didn't simplify the brand name or whatever, so it's more of a statement, Your Nutrition Anytime. So we had to figure out clever ways and options of stacking it. And in the one down below here in the bottom left, we used shape recognition to replace the U. So would anybody read this go, Yo are nutrition? Well, no, they'll figure it out. So that was a fun project to work on, actually. Branded a mental health center. I can't remember where that was at, Alabama or something. It's been a while. But again, we use the basic hierarchy of Grand Lake, and then what they do is just the descriptive part of the name, mental health. So we use the hierarchy method, but then on other directions we provided to them, we used a stack alignment direction. So I use these different methods, not just one time for one client, but in multiple directions we're providing. I'll try different things so they feel like they have an option of where they can go. Sometimes the name can be so long, it'll dictate the format you use. So Cascade Lakes Brewing Company, that's a paragraph. So how do you pull that off? Well, you could simplify company, and I did that on this direction because when I came up with this idea for how we could work out the type so it's not just blown away by all this type, I simplified company. I didn't even ask them if I could do it, and ultimately they didn't like anything we did, which was unbelievable, but whatever. I won't even get into that. That was a nightmare. But coming up with a badge motif, much like what we did here, is a great way to handle a company's brand who has a lot of type, because it allows you to be able to work out that type and all work together. So Alexandra, I hope this helped. This is something that I just did impromptu here on a Friday. Hope this helps other people who watch it. And if you have any other questions, I encourage you to just comment on this video and ask your question. It doesn't have to be about type. That's what this video is. It can be. Or you can complain that I shouldn't be kerning stuff like that. Whatever you want to type, I don't care. Whatever you want to type. Nice pun. Ask your question. If you have a problem or something that you're not sure how to handle, just shoot me an email and ask me it, and I might turn it into another impromptu video for you guys to watch and to help everybody out who has probably struggled with this to a certain degree, how to handle the formatting on a long name logo design. This is just how I do it. If you've figured out something else that works, then by all means share that in the comments too for this video so everybody can read it and everybody can benefit from it. So thank you for watching People of Process. I hope the content I shared in this movie helps to improve your own creative process. And I just want to point out we're almost at 10,000 followers now on YouTube. That's awesome. So once again, thank you for everybody who watches this content, participates in it. And I just look forward to the other things I'm going to be sharing with you coming up soon. Thank you.